Live. Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exclusive next level webinar presentation. Today, we are going to dive into the topic how to launch a top 200 podcast that electrifies the airwaves, helps you find your voice, very important, and turns into a cash machine. I know that's a mouthful. I'm going to say it again, though. How to launch a top 200 podcast that electrifies the airwaves, helps you find your voice, and turns into a cash machine. I'm your host, Adam Carswell, joined by my co-host, Fletcher Wheaton today. We had another new team member join us in the production of this webinar, so we might give him a little FaceTime here in a second too. His name is Rob Cook, Aaron Eiler as well. Thank you for all the work you guys are doing. Super energized, super energized for today. Where to begin? I mean, I guess Fletcher, I want to kind of kick it over to you, man, before we dive in and give our listeners and viewers a bit more context on Parker. How are you feeling about today? What's going on in your world?
What's going on, everybody? Pretty excited about this one today. I've been kicking the can down the road on my podcast, so I think this one will give me a little jolt and a little momentum to start my own. And I really love the energy and enthusiasm that Parker's bringing, and I'm ready to learn from him.
Sure. And then Rob, I know you were hopping in there for a second. This is your first time being on either end, I think, of the next level webinar. We might have had you as an attendee before, but what are some of your thoughts?
I've attended in the past.
You've attended. What's it like on this side? How are you feeling today?
It's always kind of fun to get the curtain pulled back a little bit and kind of see what goes behind making everything work. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. I think this is gonna be a great topic. I mean, I'm a podcaster myself, and I'll admit I am excited to learn a ton from Parker because I think there's a lot of great value. If you watched any of the pre-videos, there's going to be a lot of good stuff in this conversation.
Yeah. And hey, you guys both went to BYU. That's pretty cool.
Go Cougs.
Parker's still there. So, all right. Well, again, thank you. If you're here with us live today, we really appreciate you investing your time with us. As I mentioned, don't be afraid to use that chat box. The Q&A as well. We'll address this later again, but just keep in mind any questions along the way, shoot them to the Q&A. We'll make sure we get those answered. And yeah, ton of value coming your way. We'll talk about Parker here in a minute, but I also want to encourage anyone, if you're joining us on the replay, be sure to check out the show notes as well. Subscribe to the platform you're tuned in on. It's funny, one of the videos leading up to today, Parker was talking about how lame it is to just tell everyone to subscribe and leave them at that, because that's what everyone does. So you're right. So Parker, maybe you can even help us out here as far as driving.
I got traffic. You, man. Don't you worry, Adam. It's going to be good.
But yeah, I do want to encourage, if you're tuned in right now and you're already, getting excited for what you're going to learn today, please, subscribe there, drop a comment, review. This is on the Dream Chasers platform as well. So we really would appreciate a rating there as well. But here we go. One more time, how to launch a top 200 podcast that electrifies the airwaves, helps you find your voice, and turns into a cash machine, featuring Parker Woodward. Guys, the way I first found Parker, and it's a funny story. You know what? I'm trying to think. Let me do this first, because no one's really heard you say anything yet, Parker. I've just been yapping around. Let me just first ask you to say hello and greetings.
All right, what is up, everybody? I'm super excited and pumped to be here. In case you didn't notice already, I'm kind of overexcited about a lot of stuff, so I'm going to have a lot of energy, and if that's too much, I'm really sorry, but that's just kind of how I am at a normal state. Like, I have had no caffeine today. That's this is me at a weird natural state. I'm not sure why. I don't know what happened wrong to me, but no, I'm super excited to be here. Yeah. Adam and I connected actually, because I got mentioned in a podcast of somebody else who basically gave me a shout, and it was super awesome. And Adam was like, this is super cool. Love what he said. And so this is kind of another testament to the importance of not only having your own show, but either getting featured on other shows by actually sharing your information with people close around you, which is a great way of getting mentioned on shows, or at least the other side of actually being interviewed on other people's shows. And that's something I don't really have planned in the presentation today and everything. But like he said, everybody who's here live, if you stay till the end, we're going to have a live Q&A afterwards. But if you guys have any more questions to ask, I will gladly and really excitedly answer all of them. I've got a whole bunch of stuff planned for this webinar right now. I'm really excited. And yeah, we're going to get right into it as soon as everyone's ready.
Cool. So yeah, and guys, so a little bit more credibility and context here on Parker. I mean, you can already see the direction this is going. If you take a look at what his shirt says, he's a funnel hacker. He's part of the ClickFunnels community. And, it's funny. It's so cool how these things come together, and real honored to have him here. So as Parker mentioned, it actually began before he got mentioned on the podcast. I was watching a YouTube video or a clip, and I can't hardly remember what the topic was. But it is Russell Brunson, who's the creator of ClickFunnels, talking about something, and he kind of asked the audience a question, and the audience maybe had 100 or 200
Oh,
people.
no, you're not going to tell this story. Are you serious? You saw that video?
Oh, we're putting you on stage, man. Here we go.
Oh, shoot. I didn't even know you saw that one. I hope that one faded away to obscurity.
So, yeah, I'd actually, to your benefit, then, I can't remember the name of the video, but maybe we could find it. So
That's good. It's fine.
Russell asks a question to the crowd, and someone raises their hand and asks him a question back, or something like that. And it was Parker. Now, I didn't know it was Parker at the time. I didn't know who it was, but I see this video, and basically this person in the crowd, very bold person, goes, he says something of value, and then on top of that, he's like, well, I want to be as good as you, if not better, one day. In a very confident way. He's like telling Russell Brunson he wants to be better than him. I'm like, yo, I like this guy. He's like speaking it into existence. So, and then somehow I remembered that. And I think because Russell responded to him, he's like, oh, well, I'm going to talk to your dad later or something like that. So Parker's dad is Dave Woodward, who's the CEO of ClickFunnels. And then Russell brought something that Parker mentioned to his dad up on the Marketing Secrets show. And I was just like putting one thing together with another. I'm like, all right, where's this Parker kid at? Found him on Instagram and boom, long story short, here we are. So that was a pretty lengthy intro, probably the coolest intro we've ever had on Next Level Webinars, but that's how we got here. I jokingly said that Parker is hashtag the son of ClickFunnels. He said, well, might get in some fights with my brothers on that one, but sure, you can go ahead and say it. So anyways, guys, Parker has helped coach and produce, he's a podcast coach and a producer, and has helped his clients generate more than 900,000 in revenue with their podcast, which is very impressive. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's your warm up. That's your intro. Parker Woodward, the stage is yours. And remember, those Q&A box, start thinking now, because we're going to get to it eventually. So thank you. Let's give it up. Get those emojis going, the Zoom emojis for Parker Woodward, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm super excited to be here. This is going to be super fun. Quick little pre-frame and stuff like that, or just addressing what it was that Adam said. I did not exactly just kind of like tell Russell Brunson, hey, I'm going to be better than you one day. That was one of those things, like if you ever had an opportunity to speak to somebody who you look up to and it inspires you and everything like that, you kind of say stuff that you're like, wow, that sounded a heck of a lot better in my head. That's exactly how it was for me. I was literally just like, what do I say to a man that's like, inspired me so much and everything like that. And I heard a quote recently before that of, the best thing you can say to your, the person you look up to is, one day I'm going to be better than you because you inspired me to do so. So hopefully that came across to him. He has not teased me about it since, but yeah, just like Adam said, I am the son of Dave Woodward, and he's the CEO of ClickFunnels right now. And I want to give you guys an understanding of the context of that, of the fact that that does not in any way mean that I can give you an interview with Russell Brunson. That has no way of—
Thank you for saying that.
No, okay. And let me help you understand why. This is going to tie back into everything in the presentation. Before we get started, I want to address this. There is a big mistake that people make when it comes to Dream 100ing and basically networking and reaching out to people. It's not that you should not go after people who are above you and everything like that. I highly encourage that. Always go after your dreams, pursue those types of things, interview people who are way beyond your level, yet still needs your exposure, because I'll teach you as well how to create a podcast that Russell Brunson would want to be on. But in order for you to get that initial relationship with people, you have to make sure that you understand what it is you provide value for them for. If you want to make sure that you're getting these top people on your shows, you have to ensure that your show is something that is worthwhile for them to go on, and that you yourself understand what it is that you can help people with the most. Now, I want to hear from everybody. I haven't had a chance to understand where everybody is coming from. Adam said you guys love video games and everything. That's awesome. Let me know, what's your niche, guys? Let me know down in the comments, down in the chat room. I want to find out what it is that everybody is obsessed with, excited about, and what it is that you all specialize in. That way it's going to allow me to be able to, answer questions during this presentation, but specifically as well, I want to make sure that I'm bringing up things that are important to everybody's specific niche. If everybody's B2B in here, I'll be able to go a lot more down that route. But if it's different and everybody has different niches of like helping people with health and relationships, then that's something else that I will definitely make sure that I address. So that's the quick thing before we get in. I'm really, really excited about all this, guys. So I'm going to share my screen right now for the actual presentation that I want to make sure we get into. So this is what it is, right, guys? How to launch a top 200 podcast that electrifies the airwaves, helps you find your voice, and becomes an actual cash machine. So quick thing as well, I think before we start, it's really important to answer this question right here. Who's this guy? Who am I? Why is it that
Parker, real quick too, because I do have a general feel here to answer your question on the niche. As people, please, as Parker said, comment your focus. Commercial real estate professionals is kind of who we're working with here today.
Commercial real estate professionals. Okay, awesome. Wow, that'll be a super fun thing to talk about then for sure. So I guess that's who we know who you guys are, commercial real estate professionals. Cannot wait to get more and more about all of that from you guys. But I want to know, as far as for me and everything, that I have my own podcast. It's called Your Podcast Funnel. And that's actually something we'll be talking about later on, and how I've been able to scale my own show along with the shows of all my clients. I felt like it was really important for me to have my own show to test a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. On top of that, like I said, like Adam said, clients have generated over $900,000 through their own podcasts. My clients have gotten the top 10 podcasts in their category and stayed up there as well for a long time. It was 2 or 3 weeks post launch of their podcast, which is a very important thing to make sure you're doing, that you're not just peaking at launch, and that you stay and maintain in those categories by utilizing a lot of the core things we'll be talking about today. Top of that, my clients have interviewed owners of 7-figure businesses and beyond, even 8-figure entrepreneurs. It's really important to develop these relationships. And that's one of those things that I'm going to help you guys develop that platform, one that actually people will be reaching out to you in order to get on. If you have a top 200 podcast, that allows you to have credibility of the fact that people knew you at one point. But what if on top of having something where, you were popular, you were also useful? You were also a platform where people came to actually learn more about one specific thing. And you not only had a platform, but in fact, a gathering place for a lot of entrepreneurs curious about that one thing. Now, that's something we'll go into a lot more. But most importantly, I do hold the world record for largest game of bubble soccer. Not to toot my own horn, but that is definitely an accolade that I have. That is definitely going to come into handy and use a lot today, I think, for this presentation. Now, I want to share this real quick, because before we get into all the amazing stuff, you need to understand this one thing. 2 wolves. I used to have the picture behind me and everything like that, as Adam can attest to. But right now, I want to break this down real quick. That there are 2 wolves inside of every one of us. I'm gonna tell you a story about the ancient Cherokee, the Cherokee Indians, and how at a time when a young kid was at a coming of age, he was getting ready to go out into the world and basically become his own man. He goes to the chief. This is young man's about 14 years old, right before he's about to go through this immense ceremony. And it's about to help him find out what man he's going to be. He's about to go in the ceremony. He asks the Cherokee chief, "Sir, what is it that I can do to make sure that I am not going after the desires of my heart that's wanting me to cheat on stuff and to steal and to gain that temporary satisfaction from things, instead to do what I know is better for everybody, as I want to be a man. I want to be just like you, who's able to help our tribe do so good about everything." And the chief simply looks at him and says, "Well, son, there's 2 wolves inside each and every one of us, the good wolf and the bad wolf, a wolf of charity, a wolf of kindness, a wolf of belief, strength, and power. And then the other wolf. This is the black wolf right here that you see on the left. That wolf is all about basically, self-worth, making sure, not self-worth, but self-loathing and everything, making sure that you're not good enough, feeling that you maybe are good enough, but it might not count and everything like that. The feelings of, I need to cheat on other people because they've done the exact same thing to me. Thoughts that do not progress the world forward." And then the tribesman basically stops talking. And the young man asks him, "Hey, well, that's great and all, but what do I do about that? I know that there's these 2 wolves. How do I make sure that the white wolf, the good wolf, wins?" And as the chiefman is walking away, he turns back and he says, "The wolf that wins is the wolf that you feed the most." Each and every one of us, we are not just podcast hosts. We are not just entrepreneurs. We are people who inspire and allow other people to have their own good wolf shine through and outbeat the wolf of scarcity, the wolf of fear, the wolf of, "I can't do this because I'm not worth it." That is a calling that each and every one of you have taken on yourselves. And I hope that you understand. I hope that you feel that. I hope that you get excited to have that with you. This is something I want to make sure that we share before we start this, because this is not a webinar all about how to increase your own self. That's not going to happen if you go with this route. If you want to increase your own, self-conscious way perspective in other people, podcasting is not the route to go, because there's so many other better ways for you to quickly get in front of other people and to quickly make money off them and to quickly help them to whatever the heck it is they want you to think about them, want them to think about you. This is something where I'm going to teach you how to create an actual tribe of loyal listeners behind you that not only show up for your launch, but show up afterwards and help you to impact more people and to help you at the end of the day be excited and just euphoric about the impact that you've had. So that's what I'm going to be talking with you about today, guys. How's everybody feeling about that? What is it that you guys want to do? I want to know in the chat down below. I want to hear exactly what it is that you all are excited about, that it is that you all are passionate about. I want to make sure that this is something that is going to be impacting every single one of you. So be sure to let me know in the chat, guys. How is it that you guys feel you are able to use your own expertise to impact the lives of others? I want to know right now down in the comments, guys. Type that up real quick. How is it that you are able to change the lives of others? I know it's very important to speak these things into existence, not only from a law of attraction type standpoint, but from a psychological point of you need to remind yourself of this a lot, because we're going to be going over a lot of things that you potentially will be like, I can't do that because I'm not good enough. I can't do that because whatever the heck that dark wolf is telling you. I want to ensure that you guys are ready. I want to make sure that you guys are excited to change the lives of others. So I want to make sure we're getting into it. And it's really something that I know is going to be able to help you change lives. So the real question we all want answered from all this is, like we said at the very beginning, I'd have a top 200 podcast, having it change lives and everything. You also want to understand, how do I make my podcast an asset and not a liability for my business and as well for my movement? Because that's a big mistake that a lot of people make. They go after shiny object syndrome and they go after something that's not really worth their time. Podcasting is not that way. And let's talk about why. Okay. Let's talk about it. And basically the fact that it plugs into the 3 core principles of business. So the 3 core principles of business, in case you have not basically researched this topic, it's always said that the first step of a business is to attract leads, to attract attention to you, on top of making sure you're actually nurturing those leads. People think that second one is not really in there, but only think that it's only attracting and closing leads. That is not the case. If you are only attracting and closing them, you are not allowing people to stay with you. And this is one of the reasons why people are stuck selling low ticket offers, because they're not allowing people to be nurtured and being paid basically to do so. So I'm going to tell you how to close all your leads later on. But right now, I really want to focus on these 2 parts. This is where your podcast really comes in and really allows you to shine. So attracting leads, the list breaking podcast launch. Can we go into that right now, guys? Is everybody excited? I feel like I'm not getting a lot of excitement from you guys. How pumped is everybody? Is this something? We got Adam saying woohoo. That's what I love to see. All right. I'm really excited as well then for you guys. We got Let's Go from Fletcher. That's what we're talking about, man. I'm really excited about all this, guys. And the more that you can get me excited as well in the comments, the more I'm going to be able to dropping these value bombs for you guys. So the way to attract leads with a list breaking launch then. Rob Cook is on here. Brother, I love you so much. We got Corey giving us claps. Awesome to hear. So the ways you're able to have a list breaking podcast launch, one that gets you into the top 200 podcasts. Number one, you need subscribers. That's the number one most important thing to iTunes at the moment. You need to make sure that you actually have people clicking that subscribe button. And there's going to be different ways that I'll talk about later. So that's going to be the number one way of actually getting people to help your podcast get to the top of the 200 podcast list. Now, that's a very important thing. On top of that, though, you don't just need people clicking that subscribe button once. No, you need them to be downloading your podcast, to be listening to it. And most importantly, you need them to have a low listener churn. What churn is, it's actually a software a standpoint. So basically, when someone buys your software and then opts out, that's what's known as churn. That means you have lost people. So the more you're able to have subscribers listen to your podcast consistently and to not jump out of a podcast halfway through, the more that iTunes realize this is a podcast that we really need. This is a podcast that needs to get out to more people, because this is going to get people more consuming Apple products. This is one of those things that actually, if you read Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson, he talks about this a ton. The best way for you to actually have the SEO, the search engine optimization, point towards you is actually being something and being somebody that basically allows them to consume more of their product. Apple, they have Apple Podcasts. I use iTunes. I'm going to talk about iTunes a lot right now because of my own podcast clients and everything. We have about 60 to 70% of listeners just come from iTunes. All around the board and everything like that, it averages out about 55 to 60%. So this is why iTunes is a very big focus to have for people. And one of the main reasons why is people just listen to podcasts on iTunes. It's one of the biggest platforms out there. Spotify is gaining up with them at the moment, but as of right now, iTunes is going to be at the top. That's why I'm going to be focusing on that a lot then. So that's kind of one of those things you need to learn about them. I'm going to teach you a little bit more of how to decrease listener churn and as well as the download side of it. But right now I want to talk to you about the subscribers, the two strategies, right? You can either beg people to subscribe to your show. That's an option. That is something that you definitely can do. And it might not work, right? Because why would you subscribe to something without anything on the other side of it? If it's your friend and if it's your family, you can beg them and they'll subscribe to your podcast. Maybe they don't even listen to podcasts. But actually, there's another way. There's another way that nobody is talking about right now. And it's what's known as the subscriber funnel. So the subscriber funnel is actually what I'm going to be pushing you to, guys, and having you guys check out at the end of this at yourpodcastfunnel.com. I actually have my own subscriber funnel up there. What the subscriber funnel does is it not only says, hey, go subscribe to this podcast, but hey, if you sign up for this contest launch right now at my relaunch strategy, that's what I have right now. I'm relaunching my podcast. I'm actually getting people to subscribe to my podcast and giving them a reward for doing so. This allows me to actually get them to subscribe to my podcast on top of, at the end of it, making sure that people are continue consuming my content. So what this does is when people are not only, subscribing to your show, but then when you give them a reward, the reward I give people is actually a lead magnet that I already created. It's called Podcast Funnel Frameworks, how to basically have an unlimited amount of quality content. And that is a great way as well of having a perfect amount of problem solving. We'll call it that. A perfect amount of problem solving where you're actually solving the problem that they initially run into. That way you're able to actually offer them something at the end of it for an increased amount of money. So that's something that's really, really important. What do you guys know is your initial problem that you solve for people? I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but if you can think about it right now of when people come to you, what is the first domino that you have to help them to resolve? For me, it's content. And that's why for my incentive for getting subscribers, I actually have that all set up. So that's one of the reasons that I do that. Now, let's talk about the big mistake that people have with launching now. So one of the biggest mistakes that people have with launching is that they start their launch and then within 90 days, 70% of them have stopped. 70% of podcasts do not make it past 3-month mark. And that's not saying that they, produced a podcast episode, every day or every other day, once a week, whatever it was, until that 90-day mark. It means they fizzled out. It means they pressed the launch button on whatever subscriptions, whatever service they had, and then they stopped. And I want to talk about that real quick, because as you're listening to this, and as you're understanding of, hey, this is how I get a top 200 podcast, I need to make sure that I'm getting subscribers. I need to make sure that I'm getting downloads. I need to make sure that my content is actually structured the way that it needs to be in order for people to get more from me. Then that's the way I need to position it like this then, right? And so that's a great thing to understand, but you won't get there if you're just launching a podcast. This is why I highly recommend that people launch a framework instead of a podcast. What I mean by this is if you look at it like this, a pyramid. No, I'm not asking you to join a pyramid scheme. Although if you want some lotions, I do have a way of, you getting some good lotions and then so is that I'm not getting any comments from anybody. Does nobody want part of the pyramid scheme? Okay, fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. But no, what I want to talk about really is this real concept of the pyramid. Because you see right here that the pyramid is the exact same proportions and everything like that at the top, right? At this stage 1, this pyramid still has 4 sides. This pyramid is the exact same proportions right here. But if you can do it right and not only have this big thing that you want, the point, you can also have your entire result that you get people build out to also have all these other standpoints. They will allow themselves to have a lot more of a successful and greater pyramid, a greater concept of their launch. So my podcast launch frameworks, there's two of them. I launched my podcast initially last year, and I'm doing a relaunch this year. So that right there is kind of something to keep in mind, that there is a very big importance in actually relaunching your podcast depending upon your offers. Like I said before, don't launch a podcast, launch a framework. This will allow you to have an unlimited amount of content that will allow you to constantly change the lives of others. So that way you're not thinking of crap, I need to create another podcast today. And this is kind of one of those things I need to be doing. It's very, very difficult. It's very, very impossible for people to just off the dome ramble off all these different types of things if they've never even tested it themselves. So my first podcast launch, we had this one right here. So podcast launch frameworks. I want to make sure that I'm on the right screen for this. So my podcast funnel framework that I launched with. My podcast funnel framework is this. You need three things in order to have a successful podcast. You need content. That's what I said before. The first problem I solve for people is making sure they have content. Next up, you need to make sure you actually have growth strategies. So your growth strategies are really important because no matter how great your content is, if no one's listening, nobody cares. You know, there's a whole saying, right? If a tree falls and no one's around, does it even make a sound? That's not the right thing to say, though. What I've thought is really important to think about, if a tree falls and no one's around, nobody cares because it didn't impact anybody. It didn't change anything. People only care about what gives them change and transformation. This is why the information age is dead. People have now gone into the transformation age. They no longer want to know what to do. They need to know how it's going to help them to change their own life. That's a very, very deep concept that I can talk about later. But right now, I want you to think about your core things that you help people to be able to do. My podcast funnel framework right here, it stemmed from, actually, I'll show it to you right now. I'll step off camera real quick. It stemmed from this right here. So if you guys can see that, the Secrets trilogy. Let me know in the comments who has this trilogy right here. It's Russell Brunson, the funnel hackers and everything. I'm not sure how many of you funnel hackers actually. Rob Cook loves the book. That's super awesome, man. There is amazing, amazing value in this thing. So if you didn't know, it's 4 books actually. Got .com expert and traffic secrets. Amazing, amazing. And Unlock the Secrets is actually a workbook to do. Now I want you to look at this. So there's 3 different books. Russell Brunson has a software company he uses, and he has books that actually help to sell it because of this. So at the top of it, each and every one of these books is red, blue, and green. You got .com secrets, expert secrets, and traffic secrets. His .com secrets right here, if I can remember correctly, it is the framework of what it is you actually need in order to have a funnel. This is what it looks like. If he's selling a software that helps you to create funnels, the first problem that people need to understand is how to use a funnel to sell your business. Now, after he solved that problem, he realized he created another problem because he had such a high value problem he was solving. He created this one right here where people actually need to know what words they had to put on I said the fire. Yeah. What words you had to put on those actual funnels? How do you add fire to your framework? And on top of all of that, what if you have a framework that's like a funnel that's awesome? What if the copy on it is fantastic? Well, here comes to this last problem of nobody knows about it, so it doesn't help you. And that is the exact same thing you need to understand for your business. If all of you guys, if most of you all in here, if you all are, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I do not want to say this. So I was commercial real estate professionals. If the first problem that people run into is I don't have a home. That is the first problem that people can come into, honestly. Now, there's also other problems that are created from that, though. So you can either solve the supplemental problems of like, okay, here is, how to sell commercial real estate, if that's what your niche is. If you are commercial real estate in the way of, hey, actually, I know somebody who I can basically make sure you also have a designer set up for your home. I can make sure that your landscape is all set up for your home. I can make sure that all these different things are set up. That way, when you walk into your house, it's not just a house with 4 walls. It's a home that you enjoy, that you love. For me, I came into the fact of people wanted not only a podcast launched. My problem that I was solving was beyond that. It was people wanted a podcast that helped them to scale their impact and their influence. And that only come from the three things that help people to do. How to actually have content that actually gets people excited about your podcast, lets them stay. That's a big thing with the top 200, right? Next up is you actually need to have the growth side of your podcast, making sure that it is actually scaling and not only a time dump for you, but it's helping you to buy time back. And lastly, you need to make sure that you actually have monetization strategies that ensure that your podcast is not only getting people to consume and getting people to be introduced to you, you are also making sure that it's actually increasing your monetization side of it, of helping you to fund everything else you're going to be doing with your podcast. I realized that was really important for me because as a podcast producer, I needed to make sure that I could actually charge more money. So I wanted to make sure like, okay, well, how can I increase my value that I can provide to them? I realized that was where I really needed to be. And now I want you to think about this right here, the podcast campaign framework. So if I help people to create podcast content, a podcast funnel, that was the core aspect of the first thing that Russell Brunson did. He created a book that helped him to understand what this is. He helped people understand what really the funnel game was all about, how to have success with it. Now I'm at this other phase of I'm helping people, and this is what you're going to be doing as well as you increase your podcasts. You understand that there's more problems you're going to be solving, and the more understanding of a framework you have, the more understanding you have of creating consistent content that decreases churn of people listening through and actually increases the amount of people who stay afterwards and even opt into your funnels, which I'll talk about in the next little bit. This podcast campaign is a huge thing I've been talking about. It's the whole subscriber funnel that I have. It's a lot of the different things. Now, let's talk money, right? That's what you guys are here for. You are not just here for, helping people to listen to something. You are not just here spending your own time and money to not get anything back. Money as well, I want to make sure you all understand this, is not the root of all evil. Anybody who has said so did not really understand what it was. So Adam, show me the money. I'm going to show you the money, brother. So the money side of it that I want to help you guys understand is back to what it is you can do with money. What does money mean to you? What does money mean to your clients? Money to me means that I am able to help other people to change their own life. Money allows me to have an actual number saying, hey, I help people to know that I had this much value in them. And so understanding how to actually increase the amount of money helps us to go back to these three core principles of any business. So the three core principles of any business is going to be all about like, okay, you're attracting your leads, right? You're nurturing your leads with the podcast that I just shared about. Now, you're also able to close the leads with this strategy because we're not closing leads on our podcast, right? How many times have you opted into something on a podcast? Probably never, because there's not that function on iTunes. There's not that function on wherever it is you get your podcast platform at. So I want you to think about this real quick then, that you eliminate false beliefs with content. Okay? How does that sit with you? Your content is not really what sells your stuff. Your content is eliminating the false beliefs, and then you provide your dream destination for them with your offers. So your offers at the very end of your podcast is going to be what allows you to actually increase the amount of money you're able to have from your podcast. Those offers, I'm going to share with you real quick on what those offers really need to be and why there's really three core offers that any podcast really, really needs. Okay, but before I get to that, I want to share with you real quick, basically, or actually, we'll do that later. Let's go to the three different funnels and offers your podcast needs. Let's get into that right now, because I think that's something that is going to help to excite you about a lot of the different things that your podcast is able to help you with. So the three different funnels and your offers that your podcast needs is number one, it has to be a lead magnet. Now, I talked before, if you can remember this, three core aspects of the business: lead generation, lead nurturing, and lead closing. This lead magnet allows you to actually get their email in return from them. I have a lot of different ways of doing this, actually. And instead of basically just getting their email, though, you're also able to, on the flip side, of get them into a nurture sequence where you're able to maybe send them to this one, which is going to be your tripwire. When you have these three different offers, your lead magnet, let's talk about that real quick. Your lead magnet is going to be something for free you give. I have a Facebook group that is all about actual podcast owners who are entrepreneurs. I help digital marketers, basically, is my core thing that I help people with at the moment. I help these online entrepreneurs actually scale their information products with their podcast. Now, that lead magnet that I give them actually is just going into my Facebook group. Why? Because in my Facebook group, I can have a conversation with them, and it's not me just blasting them with emails. I can actually have them come on my Facebook group and have a conversation with them. I can actually send them to different things on my podcast. I can basically go live and actually have a training with them and have them understand, like, hey, this is what's working right now. This is what's not working. What are you guys feeling? And allows you to test offers. Specifically, can help me test this tripwire. A tripwire funnel, in case you didn't know this, a tripwire funnel is basically something where it's 7 to, I believe it usually caps out at around 27. So $7 to $27 is what you're going to kind of be going into with this. At the $7 to $27 range, you are having people basically just validate what it is you're saying with their wallet. This helps you to see, like, okay, I have, maybe I'm really good at getting people's emails. That's super awesome. But with your podcast, you're also able to help them to get to their tripwire by utilizing the fact that you have eliminated all their false beliefs. And that with this tripwire, with this $7 to $27 funnel, you are then able to help them make a better investment in themselves. There's a great quote out there. It's by Russell Brunson. Basically, the transformation is in the transaction. If you can't get people to take out their wallet with you, then you probably won't be able to help them to actually make an investment in themselves and actually take that next step. A lot of people, they only struggle with having this one right here, which is really important to also have, which is a high ticket program. High ticket programs can range from anywhere to $997 to even $10,000. High ticket programs can be sold through your podcast because you're nurturing them all along the way. With your podcast, you're able to break down the problems people go into for each and every one of these. So let's say for a high ticket program, if my program was, let's say, producing a podcast, my high ticket side of that, adding on a whole bunch of other stuff, the one that I've actually created is the actual podcast campaign that you're able to go through for 3 months, where it allows you to understand of, like, how am I going to build up pressure for this podcast launch? How am I going to have a successful podcast launch where I create a self-liquidating offer, sort of like a tripwire, where it actually gets people to validate my product with them, but I'll sell to them on a webinar that they get access to from subscribing, incorporating in that lead magnet. And basically in the 3-month mark, after 6 or 7 weeks, basically after my podcast launch, I'm then able to have everybody who's on that webinar and everybody else who's opted into my podcast ever since, they will be able to actually be on this webinar and kind of walk them through the self-liquidating offer I had, what I've learned since, and finally of how to actually increase the effectiveness of it. So that's what my high ticket offer is. It's a lot of different components. But a lot of those things is basically having somebody invest in your product before it even goes live. You can have that with, I can talk about that in my podcast right now. I even used it, of the fact that I'm giving away a lot of the core essences of it at yourpodcastfunnel.com. It's where actually I'm having this contest where I'm giving people incentives for giving me, for basically sending people my way of just subscribing to the podcast, just opting into this little challenge that I have. And that's one of those things I can provide in the high ticket thing. I can have a podcast that's directed just on subscriber funnels, and that'll actually get people excited for and become aware of what is in my high ticket offer and how to actually get in contact with it. So this is kind of going to all be inside your funnel. That might have been a little too complex, but basically it goes into this. If you're having a podcast that is all about content, you're going to send them to what lead magnet? If you're going to have a podcast that's all about growth and guests, what lead magnet, tripwire, high ticket offer can you provide for that? If you're going to be offering all about monetization, what lead magnet, tripwire, high ticket offer could you send them to? And then that way, if you have that framework built out, you will have a offer set up depending on what podcast topic that framework goes into. If I ever have a podcast about content, I send them actually right to my Facebook group where I can help them with content. We're going to help them because I have trainings in there, because I ask questions, because I'm in there daily. So that's a great way of doing that. If I have the growth and stuff like that, I actually am sending them to a new thing in the coming up soon, actually, just basically all about podcast traffic, how to make sure that people are getting not only to your podcast, but to your offers afterwards. And a high ticket standpoint, that's basically more on if I'm helping with some of the monetization and something that's very more expensive. I don't send them as well. Do not do this. If you're listening to this right now, repeat after me. I will not. I want to see in the comments, in the chat box, guys. I will not send people a free booking call. Don't do that. It devalues your time. It devalues your service. Do not send them to a coaching call, a free coaching call with you. Instead, here's what you do. If you want to sell high ticket on your podcast, and guys, I've only seen 2. What's up? Is everybody paying attention? I will not send people to a free coaching call. I want to make sure you understand this, because if you do, couple bad things are going to happen. One, people are going to devalue your time. Okay, because like this guy's giving free time away. Why? Like clearly it's not something good. Number 2, people will not get the result that they need at that time. Because if they have a problem and if they're willing to book a call with you, they're willing to give you their email, they're willing to do all this different type of stuff, they have to wait until they get on that call with you. Why not instead send them to a webinar where they actually have a call, where you have a call you already did, or even just going over a lot of the call stuff that you kind of went through, having that instead on the lead magnet or on the, and you're basically at the offer, basically sending them that free thing. And then at the end of the actual call, you will give them an option to actually get a call with you. And then you could even have them prepay for it of, hey, this is basically something that I really want. Here is $247 or whatever you feel would be the best price for your services at that moment, to give them actually an intensive where you're like, hey, this is what we're going to go through. I want to make sure you have all that set up, but I do not do this with people who do not deserve my time. So that's the 3 different funnels and offers that your podcast really needs. Never forget what it's all for, though. We just talked a whole bunch about all the different things you could do. We just talked a lot about a lot of the different mistakes people make. We talked a lot about different just components you're able to do, a lot of things that can overwhelm. I probably did overwhelm you on accident. So I invite you to remember, who are you helping? What would it mean if you helped one person to improve their own wealth, to get into that house, to finally look themselves in the mirror and be proud of, I own what it is that I'm in, to finally allow somebody to have that get together with their family that they've always been kind of ashamed of, to have them over at your house because it wasn't good enough? What if you were to help that one person? I invite you guys to think about that more and more as this time goes on. As we kind of start transitioning into more of a Q&A and you guys ask me your questions, always remember what it's all for. Always remember how it is you're able to change lives, and I can guarantee you that you will be able to do so. So thank you guys so much for being here. Seriously. I hope you guys know that. I hope how excited I am to see how everybody implements everything that I've been talking about. Keep on being amazing. Keep on starting your own podcast and scaling it to the point where you're able to see the impact you're able to have in making people's lives. Hope you all have an awesome day, and I can't wait to answer your questions.
Thank you, Parker, for crushing it, man. Lots of golden nuggets in there. Why don't we go ahead and also we got the wolves on the screen, which is great. I noticed you moved, as you mentioned, that used to be behind you. I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
But yeah, some fantastic questions coming in here. I do want to flip it over to Fletcher real quick. Any feedback? I know one of my favorite parts right there was the booking of the call. Don't just be throwing your time out there like that. I've made that, thankfully made that change not too long ago. And it was just like, yeah, you got to value your time. So it's always refreshing to hear that. Fletcher, what were some of your takeaways?
Thank you for your time there, Parker. I got a lot scribbled down from it. I really liked how you talked about it's not really the information age, it's really the transformation age, and really how you can use that on a podcast if you wanted to dive into that one. Or I have another question. It's, how do you make sure you're not getting somebody on your podcast and then just asking them like routine, questions that they're getting every single day? Is it more you just, something you're passionate about, or is this just you researching that person, or a combination?
Yeah. So good questions. I know the second one it's very good of basically people are always thinking of how is it I'm not only asking those good questions, but also getting people on my show who will be able to provide massive value. And that is where your framework really comes into play. If you have a destination that people are trying to get to, and you know that this is where people need to go, and you have their start point labeled out, and then you're like, okay, this is the first problem they're going to go into. After they get over that problem, they're going to create this one, though. And then this is where they really want to be. And this is how I'm going to get them there. Along that way, what are the places that you need knowledge filled in? And then you can go after people who are geniuses in those areas and have them on your show. And then basically helping them to plug into your framework. That way, basically, it plugs right into your offers. And it basically as well allows people to join in JVs with you, because it's a very synchronous it works between both of you of having actual affiliate offers together, or even having another launch in the future. And then if you're going to make sure you're asking the right questions to them, it kind of all goes into what is it that they know that your people don't, that you don't, and how can you help them to implement all that information? Hopefully that helps.
All right. Thank you, Parker.
Yep. Yeah. I got some more questions coming through here. Actually, before I dive into that though, Rob, I'm sure you had some follow-up and feedback for Parker too, as you continue to grow the Contenders Wanted brand. That's the name of Rob's show. Any questions for Parker? You're on mute, right?
Oh,
there you go.
sorry. Yeah. I guess one of my questions was, you talked about how there's three main funnels, right? The lead magnet, the tripwire, and then the high ticket program. A lot of times there can also be a step in between tripwire and high ticket program, like a core offering. Do you usually talk about core offerings with your clients, and do you encourage them to have something along those lines?
Yeah. So for core offer, that is something that I usually ascend people to after the tripwire. So if I'm going to be, and that's a great way of it. It's an upsell. You already have their credit card. So it's something that's very easy to just kind of have them go up to that next level of, hey, I'm helping you with this. Here's this as well. It's kind of harder sometimes to send somebody to something that is a core offer 297 area, because if it's at that level and you're able to provide a high ticket service, you probably should be charging more for it. But you can even be breaking down part of your high ticket offer into something else, hey, I charge $997 for this. How about I actually give you a break on it though, and here's a $247 where I'll go into one of the parts of my high ticket, and then from there you can even ascend them further up.
Makes sense.
Got a question from Zach here, and then also we got about 5 minutes left, guys, before we wrap up Q&A. So any questions, please get them in there. This one's from Zach. Almost said Fletcher, which is funny actually. Parker's son, Fletcher's son's name is Parker. That's kind of funny. So Zach says, what are your thoughts on sponsorships, Parker?
Oh, I hate them. Oh, they are the death of everything. They are just the worst thing ever. In my personal opinion, you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money on sponsorships. John Lee Dumas is cranking it right now. He has generated $20 million through his podcast sponsorships. I forget how much amount of time it was though. So you can do a lot with sponsorships and everything, honestly. At the same time, you won't be able to have as much control over it. So if you're just driving people to a sponsorship that you don't get all the money from, on average sponsorships, you get about, if I can remember this correctly, the average point is $20 per 1,000 downloads. Unless it's a, hey, use my tag type thing of like, hey, use my coupon code and everything, which people don't remember oftentimes. So it's very difficult. So instead, if you kind of want to increase the offers kind of you have, I would recommend actually becoming an affiliate of somebody else. You can actually go through ClickBank, and you actually will basically become an affiliate for somebody, and you will send them to somewhere where you actually will collect their email address. So that way you can send them more stuff to your podcast, as well to other offers you'll have later on. And it'll be a great way of very little overhead for you. You basically just collect the check. And that's just my personal thoughts on sponsorships personally. I just think it dilutes the brand a little bit, especially if you're a high ticket coach or high ticket service provider.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I actually kind of have a follow-up question for that one, because I've been thinking, I know someone recently, and this is not necessarily for podcasting, but they just started a YouTube channel, and they're making sure that they, for example, do all the right things so that way they're never in bad standing with YouTube. And I know thinking back on if I had to start from scratch with YouTube, I would actually be thinking the other way. I would be thinking, if I'm going to make money off of this, one, with what you just talked about today, which is pretty powerful, but two, I'd prefer to have sponsorship with people that I know, like, and trust being my main source of income instead of relying on YouTube as my main as my main source. So I don't know. I guess I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
No, yeah. I mean, if you know, like, and trust them, and it's a brand that you endorse, and it's something that you enjoy a whole bunch, you've gotten a lot of value out of, then maybe it does align with your brand and it's perfect. But it's again, it's the way that I do it. It's a longer game. Like, my podcast is going to be up forever. And every single time I have an offer I put up, I'm making sure that right before I'm eliminating every false belief they're ever going to have about that one thing. So maybe you can partner with somebody who does that exact same thing for you, where it's like, hey, go to this. Here's exactly how to have expertise in it. But if you're coaching people on becoming, creating webinars, for coaching, if you're creating content that's all about how people have success in this, it's almost an easier sell to position something in it that is has a lot more synchronous.
I mean,
That's not
yeah,
the right word.
it goes directly to your brand too. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Floor is open. Oh, we do have a question come through here. Another one from Courtney Stone. All right. What's up, Courtney? Parker, what are some of the strongest strategies and platforms that have helped you grow and scale your podcast other than Facebook?
Oh, good question, Courtney. Okay, so best way for you to grow your podcast without, as opposed to Facebook. I mean, any social media platform is really good. I highly recommend always posting your stuff to social media. That is something that I always recommend, and there's specific ways you can do that to make sure you're not just link barfing. That's a big problem that people have, is they just dump their podcast in without any pre-frame. There's no hook, there's no story, it's just an offer, and it has low conversion rates because it has no incentive to do so. So other than that, though, if you want to make sure you're actually getting a lot more growth, I actually have an auto growth strategy. It's through guests. Now, you have guests on your show. You are going to make sure that you are treating them like the kings and queens that they are. Because if you have a guest on your show, especially if they have a podcast already, you are going to be making sure that you're creating social media assets for them. It's very easy to do so. Go to Fiverr, get just somebody to create either on Canva or on Adobe Illustrator, whatever you have experience with, and basically just have them create a template that you can drag and drop people's faces into of your people. It's a very cheap way of doing that if you don't want someone to take it over for you. And it allows you to actually make sure that you always have an asset for them. You can then post that, they'll share it to their audience, and it'll increase your conversion rates of actually getting people on your podcast. Because studies have shown, by the way, what was this number for that one? I believe it was 56% of people who listen to podcasts listen to it because a friend referred it over to them. So getting somebody who is in somebody's audience already, who has a following, is a great way of doing that, because it increases exponentially the amount of, it's called the know, like, and trust factor, KLT factor. Basically, it just exponentially increases your effectiveness in that, and we'll get them to listen to your show. And if you have a strong content structure, they'll binge listen to it. Quick thing as well, best length for a podcast episode. Can I tell you guys? 8 to 15 minutes. Solo episodes, 8 to 15 minutes. Any more than that, and you actually start losing people's attention. And iTunes does not value that listen as much because they will drop out. If instead you can get them to listen to more than one episode by having not only, episodes that are short and like, oh my gosh, yeah, I guess you kind of got into it, but of understanding, like, okay, how can I nail one awesome thing right now, one awesome thing later, another awesome thing here? It'll increase the amount of content you have and increase the amount of implementation that people will have with that information.
Love it. Love it. That was interesting. I never thought of that with the Fiverr approach. I've seen that option on Fiverr, but it's time to start playing around with it.
You just ask them to basically make a template for you and share it with you. Again, whatever software or thing you use to create it.
Cool. First, let me get this. Parker, if for anyone tuned in right now live or watching the replay, what is the best way for them to reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah. So if you want to reach out and get in touch with me, best way ever to do it is always through Facebook. I'm always on Facebook. Just look up Parker Woodward. That's definitely where I am. You can go to yourpodcastfunnel.com/group. And that actually allow you to get right into my Facebook group if that's something where you want to basically have more conversation, not only with me, but also other entrepreneurs who are using podcasting to scale their business. Would 100% recommend going in there. Other things as well of just send me an email, parker@trypodcasting.com. I'm on a lot of different platforms, so that would probably be one of the best ways.
Love it. All right. Well, I know, as I mentioned, we're going to be wrapping it up here soon. I do want to pass it over real quick to Fletcher and to Rob to just give us some final thoughts. And by the way, for those who are tuned in live, we are going to do a quick breakout session with Parker when we're done. But just for the sake of the replay, Fletcher and Rob, we'll start in that order. Any closing remarks?
Parker, thanks so much, man. I learned a ton, and really look forward. I'm going to reach out to you when I officially launch so I don't make any mistakes myself. And thank you for your time.
I can't wait, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and Parker, I think you shared a ton of great content. For anyone who is listening to this live, go back and listen to the replay, because I'm sure you're going to get even more out of it when you listen to it the second time around. I was taking notes feverishly over here. And like I said, I already got my own podcast, and he's throwing out tons and tons of great stuff. So go back, re-listen to it. I'm sure you're going to get even more out of it. Well done.
Love that. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us here today at the How to Launch a Top 200 podcast that electrifies the airwaves, helps you find your voice, and yes, turns into a cash machine. If you found value in today's message, be sure to, if you're on the replay, that is, and we're gonna work on this too. Well, Parker, I'm gonna follow up with you on this. But for now, make sure you subscribe there. Yes, subscribe. I know it's kind of boring. Drop us a rating, leave us a comment. If you're on Dream Chasers platform, be sure to check out the link to the video replay in there. And then, yeah, we'll just say one more time, Parker, any closing words or parting words?
100%. Always remember what it is you get into, what it is you're doing. There is a lot of opportunity you have to change the world, and you will do so as long as you remember why it was that you started. I love the brain. I love learning about it. The strongest part of your brain that influences the most decisions is the part that's connected to emotion the most. So if you want to make a hard decision, always surround it with emotion of either what it's helping you to become or preventing you from becoming. And you will always make the harder decisions, and your people will thank you for what it is that you help them to achieve.
Killer. Killed it. All right. One more big thank you to Fletcher, Rob, almost forgot Aaron, and of course, Parker. This was awesome. Our audience, you guys rock. Thank you for tuning in here with us. My name is Adam Carswell. And remember, in all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level.